So I was just reading this article that was published January 2nd in the Christian Science Monitor. And I follow a lot of vegan YouTubers, and I haven't seen anyone bring it up yet. But it seems to me it's a pretty big deal. The USDA, United States Agricultural Department, comes up with food recommendations every 5 years, and most people were familiar with the pyramid, and then it became the plate, and then my plate, and so every 5 years they tweak it and change it and do some adjustments to it. And it looks like this for next year they are considering, this panel is recommending to the USDA that beef get taken off as a food source. So right now I think it just recommends lean beef and poultry, but it would be taken off altogether. And the reason given is for the environment, because it takes so many more resources to raise cattle than, say, to raise other livestock. So the cattle industry is going to fight it tooth and nail. This is not over yet. But it's a huge deal because, most schools and districts in the country, they use those recommendations for their school lunches. So, and that's what's taught to kids, that's healthy eating. And so it really is a big deal. And it may just be beef this year, but maybe in 5 years from now, they'll get rid of also pork and then poultry. So it's going to be a pretty big deal. It's not over yet. These are just recommendations at this point. But yeah, the article came out January 2nd, and wow, I think it's pretty good news. So we'll have to see what happens. And here's the article. Okay, so here's the article in the Christian Science Monitor. It's titled, "Where's the Beef? New federal diet guidelines may recommend less meat." New recommendations suggest eating smart for the planet as well as health. In other words, more fruits, veggies, nuts, and whole grains, and less meat. And it says, a panel that advises the Agricultural Department appears set to recommend that you be told not only what foods are better for your own health, but also for the environment. That means that when the latest version of the government's dietary guidelines comes out, it may push even harder than it has in recent years for people to choose more fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, and other plant-based foods at the expense of meat. Yes, the beef and agricultural industries are crying foul. Oh, I can totally tell. I always see that was going to happen. Saying as environmental agenda has no place in what has always been a practical blueprint for a healthy lifestyle. I guarantee they are going to fight this to the end. With all that they have, all the money that they have, all the resources that they have, they will fight this to the end. It says the advisory panel has been discussing the idea of sustainability in public meetings, indicating that its recommendations expected earlier this year may address the environment. A draft recommendation circulated last month said a sustainable diet helps ensure food access for both the current population and future generations. A dietary pattern higher in plant-based foods and lower in animal-based foods is more health-promoting and is associated with lesser environmental impact than is the current average U.S. diet, the draft said. That appears to take at least partial aim at the beef industry. A study by the journal Proceeding of the National Academy of Sciences last year said raising beef for the American dinner table is more harmful than the environment than other meat industries such as pork and chicken. Well, that is true, but I'm hoping that they're just tackling one industry at a time. They're going to take on the cattle industry first, the beef industry, and then pork, and then chicken. So I'm hoping that's what they're doing, because all three industries are bad for the environment. I mean, let's be real. The study said that compared with other popular animal proteins, beef produces more heat-trapping gases per calorie, puts out more water-polluting nitrogen, takes more water for irrigation, and uses more land. As the advisory committee has discussed the idea, doctors and academics on the panel have framed sustainability in terms of conserving food resources and also what are the healthiest foods. There is compatibility and overlap between what's good for health and good for the environment, the panel says. Once recommendations are made, the Agricultural Health and Human Services Department will craft the final dietary guidelines, expected about a year from now. Published every 5 years, the guidelines are the basis for the USDA's My Plate icon that replaced the well-known food pyramid in 2010 and is designed to help Americans with healthy eating. Guidelines will also be integrated into school lunch meal patterns and other federal eating programs. The meat industry has fought for years to ensure that dietary guidelines do not call for eating less meat. The guidelines now recommend eating lean meats instead of reducing meat altogether. But another draft discussed at the panel's December 15th meeting says a healthy dietary pattern includes fewer red and processed meats. In response, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association sent out a statement by doctor and cattle producer Richard Thorpe, calling the committee biased and the meat recommendation absurd. He said, lean beef has a role in healthy diets. Oh, yeah, right. I need to see a picture of him and see what this guy looks like. He's probably way overweight. Objections are coming from Congress, too. A massive year-end spending bill enacted last month noted the advisory committee's interest in the environment and directed Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack to only include nutrition and dietary information, not extraneous factors in final guidelines. Congress often uses such non-binding directions to put a department on notice that lawmakers will push back if the executive branch moves forward. Freaking jerks. Environmentalists are pushing the committee and the government to go the route being considered. We need to make our diets in alignment with our natural resources and the need to reduce climate change. Michael Jacobson of the Center for Science and Public Interest said the idea of broader guidelines isn't unprecedented. They have been shaped to address physical activity and food safety. Yeah, I mean, like that when the pyramid came out, and then My Period came out, and they had the steps up the pyramid, and they had the stick figure, walking up the steps to promote exercise. So that's a good example of that as well. I mean, come on now. So that is really, really, really good news. So let's hope that those standards get adopted and we get beef out of there altogether. Is it that big of a deal? Yes, because all schools and districts in the United States, they use those recommendations for their school lunches. So, I mean, it's a huge, big deal. Here's My Plate right now. This is what USDA recommends right now. You can see most of the plate, is fruits, vegetables, grains. And then you got a little piece of protein and then dairy. And then what the guidelines actually say about meat is right here. It says, vary your protein food choices. Twice a week, make seafood the protein on your plate. And then it says, eat beans, which are a natural source of fiber and protein. So I love that. And then keep meat and poultry portions small and lean. So I imagine what they would do is probably just get rid of the meat part and just maybe say poultry and fish. Or it does say switch from solid fats to oils when preparing food. And then it gives the example of solid fats: beef, pork, chicken fat, butter, cream, and milk fat, and so on. So at least they've included that. But the next plate should be much more animal friendly and environmentally, sensitive. So let's hope that we get rid of beef, then pork follows, then poultry.